Welcome, everyone. If you could have a seat, please, I'd appreciate it. Fernando Zazueta, Ray Castaneda, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. Jerry Greer, look at all these beautiful faces. Clarence Stone, have a seat. Behave yourself, please. Kathleen and President Karen. President Karen, can you have a seat? Enjoy yourself. Thank you all for coming. And welcome to all. If anyone has a guest, would you please come up to the microphone and introduce your guest? As briefly as you are able. Mike, please go first. Hold on one second, Mike. Hold on. That was an attempt at ringing the new bell to get everyone to be quiet.
President Steve, I'd like to introduce you a student from the I House from Edinburgh, Scotland, James Tyler.
Welcome, James. Hopefully we'll get to play some golf, James, before you go back home. Mike Damberger, I've got a lot of humming up here. Rich, go ahead.
President Steve, I have a guest here who's a visiting scholar, Valeria Kornukhova. She's Ukrainian, but comes directly from Naples.
Welcome, Valeria. And you will all be hearing from Valeria in a few minutes.
Hi, President Steve. I brought my colleague, Brian Kiernan. He works in real estate with me and has been a wonderful mentor to me and was particularly interested in this topic.
Wonderful. Welcome, Brian. Enjoy the day.
Hi, President Steve. I have two guests here today. Kevin Gentes, he's an attorney here in San Jose, and Stacy Anatopoulos, who is the paralegal for the Outlaw Office of Jim Little.
Well, I'm one of the great fans of Jim Little, so welcome, and let's just take 1 second. Jim Little, stand up for a moment. Jim's back in the house. If you don't know Jim, he's one of our great Rotarians. Everyone get to know Jim. Jim, it's really good to see you.
Afternoon,
Liz.
President Steve, Elizabeth Monley. My guest today is my good friend, longtime mentor, previous, just immediately past president of the California Association of Realtors, and Realtor of the Year for the Western Section for NAR, National Association of Realtors, and I love seeing him here. Dave Walsh.
Hey, Dave, don't walk away. I'm just gonna guess in selling all that real estate, you probably made a lot of money. And so in a minute, we're gonna do something called ring the bell and ring. And normally we would never ask guests to ring the bell, but if you have some event in your life you want to celebrate, I want to invite you to ring the bell in a couple minutes, okay?
I think I know where this is going.
I'm all done. Welcome, Dave. Go have a good time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
President shakes down our guests. I have two guests today. One is my confidential secretary who's been here before, Lori Lamley, and my best three quarters, wife Carmen.
Welcome, both of you. Welcome. Hi, Scott.
Steve, Scott Neese, Association's Professional Trade. My guest is the Deputy County Assessor, Autumn Young. I am also her husband.
Welcome on many levels. I forgot to thank Bert for the wine today. Bertie, thanks for the wine. That's very sweet of you. Next up is Valeria Kornukhova. Valeria, come on up. Valeria is a visiting scholar from Italy. She was born in Ukraine, but moved to Naples when she was, I think she told me, 8 years old. And we really thought it would be wonderful to get a Ukrainian citizen's perspective on what's happening in Ukraine right now. So I'm really grateful. Valeria is living with Rich and Karen Angeluni for a while. So she's in Nagley Park and close by, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. So with that, please welcome Valeria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valeria Kornukhova. and I'm Ukrainian. Okay. There are moments in your life that you will never forget. 24 February of 2022, my friend called me to say me that the war started in my country. Russian army invaded my country, and people are living in this incredible disaster situation. I arrived to San Jose State University as a visiting scholar a few weeks ago. And as you know, the tensions were rising all the time because Russian government decided to put the troops by the Ukrainian border. But who could even expect that in the center of Europe in 2022, the war can start? Who could even expect something like this? I'm not. And my people didn't expect that. But Ukrainians are live there. They live in this situation right now. They hear everything. They hear the shots. The cities are bombarded, and they sleeping every night in the bomb shelters. My grandfathers, my grandparents, my family, my friends are there. I'm constantly worried about their lives. I'm constantly worried about their safe. But nobody wants to leave Ukraine. They have jobs, they have families, everything. They have everything in Ukraine. And this unnecessary war provoked flows of refugees to the Western countries. People don't have the possibility to evacuate in a well way, so they just blocked somewhere in the middle of the streets without food and water. The fundamental right, which is the right for life, was violated by Russian government. Just in the first days of the war, more than 300 people were died and 16 children. Now, I don't know the statistics, but I know that numbers rising very quickly. My country, Ukraine, is an independent country from 1991. It has its own culture, it has its own language, and more than 1,000 years of history. It can be destroyed. That's why I would like to say that I'm very proud of Ukrainian people, Ukrainian military, Ukrainian civilians. Ukrainian military resists to this oppression. Ukrainian civilians are more united than ever. My grandfather told me by phone, I will protect my lady, about my grandmother. He's 85 years old. He was born, and he was a child. He was born before the Second World War, and he was a child during the Second World War, so he remembers everything about it. And he don't want it. The spirit of Ukrainian people is unbreakable. Ukrainian mothers give a birth to the child in the bomb shelters. Ukrainian businesses are united to donate to Ukrainian army. Some restaurants offer free meals to the people, and they deliver medicine, they deliver food and water in the places that have the necessity. The international community supports us. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank every single person that's hearing me and that's helping Ukraine to stop this aggression, to stop the war in my country. Please don't stop. Please don't stop to do it. Please continue to sustain us. Please continue to speak about it. Please continue to donate if you can. I will never forget the invasion of my country by Russian army, but I will always remember Ukrainian peoples that are defending their freedom, they are defending their independence. People deserve peace. There is no justification for any war in the world. Thank you.
I think I share the feeling of all of us that we want to do something meaningful to help the Ukrainians. So I think that was a start that will hopefully inspire all of us. I'm going to read a brief statement from Rotary International. It is a tragic and sad time for the people of Ukraine and the world. At Rotary, we are deeply concerned by the deteriorating situation in Ukraine. Excuse me. So Valeria and I met the other day to talk about her talk, and she was worried about crying today, but we didn't talk about me crying, but here we are, Brian Adams, if you're here. At Rotary, we are deeply concerned by the deteriorating situation in Ukraine and the escalating loss of life and humanitarian hardship there. Continued military action against Ukraine will not only devastate the region, but also risk spreading tragic consequences across Europe and the world. As one of the world's largest humanitarian organizations, we have made peace the cornerstone of our global mission. We join the international community in calling for an immediate ceasefire, withdrawal of Russian forces, and a restoration of diplomatic efforts to resolve this conflict through dialogue. In the past decade, Rotary clubs in Ukraine, Russia, and nearby countries have transcended national differences and have actively engaged in peace-building projects to promote goodwill and to marshal assistance for the victims of war and violence. Today, our thoughts are with our fellow Rotary members and others in Ukraine coping with these tragic events. Rotary International will do everything in its power to bring aid, support, and peace in the region. I thought that was very eloquent. So hopefully we can all find meaningful ways to support these people in Ukraine. So please try hard. In the biggest segue in my year from the sublime to the ridiculous, we're going to ring the bell now. So who's going to be the first ridiculous person to ring the bell? Carl, you want to ring the bell? Go for it. There's a button on there, Carl.
I should know that. So I will ring it 10 times. This wasn't planned, but only one goes to Rotary Foundation. The other 9 goes to Elizabeth Monley's Disaster Recovery. Elizabeth, I assume you're working or starting to work? You're starting to work on the Ukraine thing. I mean, thank you so much for speaking, and anything we can do, even if it's token. So we'll make it 9 for her committee, and then 1 for the foundation. Thanks so much.
Beautiful,
Steve.
Carl. Thank you. TM, hold on one second. Remember our bell got stolen? So this is our stand-in bell. Tim Gill.
Yes, I want to ring the bell 5 times. Once, my daughter's getting married on March 19th, so unfortunately I'll miss the gala. But I'd like 4 rings to go to Rotary International.
Thank you, Tim. Ed Correa.
I'd like to ring the bell 5 times for our disaster recovery efforts.
Wow, thanks, Ed.
Great. Thank you.
Bonnie Bamberg.
Hi, President Steve. I want to ring the bell 1 time to follow up on the message that you read from Rotary International. With you on Sunday, we had the opportunity to meet the Rotary International president. Jennifer Jones is an incredible human being. And during this time, I was so fortunate to have a chance to talk with her and get one of her fabulous international hugs. But we're very lucky to have someone of her caliber in the position of president of Rotary International.
I agree, Bonnie. Thank you. Liz.
President Steve, I would like to ring the bell 5 times. 2 times for my new partnership with Lisa Regal, who will make a big difference in our community, and 3 times to add to the Disaster Relief Committee.
Thank you, Liz.
Funds for Ukraine.
Thank you.
President Steve.
Clarence, you're Clarence, that's right. Clarence Stone.
My younger brother's over there.
Forgive me.
You'll be hearing from him soon. I'd like to ring the bell 10 times, and that would be for the disaster relief program. As your foundation president, I should inform you all that usually the ring the bell money goes to the endowment, but today I'm suspending that if anybody wants to give to this wonderful cause.
Thank you, Clarence. You know, this is actually an example of improvisation. Clarence and I talked about how we might funnel some money to Ukraine, and we really had no plan. And Carl, you made that happen today, so thank you. Jay Ross.
Hello, President Steve. So much to celebrate. I just can't tell you how happy I am to be here, to see you, see everybody in the room. I want to celebrate that today and ring the bell 10 times.
Wow, thank you, Jay.
President Steve, I'd
Shashir.
like to go with the Ukraine Fund 5 times.
Wonderful, thank you, Shashir.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve.
President Steve, yes, wow, that was incredible. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. I'm going to ring the bell 1 time for all the people in District 4 that I'm annoying with my wife's nomination papers. And then I'm going to ring it, God, I don't want to feel, I'm going to ring it 25 times for Ukraine.
Wow, thank you, Steve. That's really fun. Rich.
3 more for Ukraine, Steve.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Rich.
President Steve, I'd like to ring it 3 times. 1 in honor of our friend Jim Little, who retired last year. 1 in honor of his longtime paralegal assistant, Stacy Paniatopoulos. And the 3rd time for the Ukrainian effort.
Thank you, Leslie. Dave Davis.
President Steve, also want to add 10 times for the Ukrainian relief that our group supporting that through the international.
Thank you, David.
Five rings for Ukraine.
Wow, thanks, Norm.
4 rings for Ukraine and 1 ring from James Tyler from Edinburgh, Scotland for Ukraine.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, Dan.
Steve, I'd like to ring it 2 times for the Ukraine and let's see, 2 times for my 2 latest newspapers, the Los Gatos and the Spets Valley Press Banner.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Good to see you. I think we need to call that a day, and or else we'd go through everyone in the room, which would be an interesting experiment. But that was an incredible showing of generosity. Thank you, Valeria. Where are you? Isn't that nice? Ed Correa, your turn.
So this is the Mea Culpa edition of the International Women's Day event. I've talked to a number of you after I spoke last week, and people have told me I didn't make it clear that this is a stealth recruiting effort. Yes, it's all about women and appreciation of women leadership. It's going to be a great event. But the real idea was to have an event that you could bring your non-Rotarian friends to, that we could turn around and turn them into Rotarians. So 3 big points. It's a stealth recruiting event, number 1. Number 2, what do you need to do? Go to our social media and share out the posts that we've done on the event with your friends on your social media. And number 3, my sincerest gratitude to Bert George, who has donated the wine for the event. It's going to be a fantastic event. I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I'd like to give a shout out to our friend Ernie Moreno. Ernie's company does janitorial service here at the Summit Center for us, and they do a stellar job. They were presented with a tough situation after this building was empty for a couple of years, and they really did a beautiful job getting it ready. But pro bono, Ernie's company is cleaning that big stairwell over there. That was an embarrassment that any of you who walk the stairs know about. So if you run into Ernie, please say thank you. Thanks, Ernie. Deanna Persai. Next up is Kathleen Thomas. Kathleen, if you want to come up here, or you could stay down there if you'd prefer. Deanna.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to remind you of the lithium-ion battery recycling day. It's going to be on Saturday, September 19th. Let's all say, oh, I'm sorry? March 19th. Dave Peterson is going to bring his big truck on the 16th. And if you have items at your home, cell phones, laptops, tablets, electronic toothbrushes, wireless headphones, power tool batteries, anything with a rechargeable battery, Dave is going to collect it on Wednesday the 16th and take it over there. We're also looking for volunteers that morning from 9 to 1. We're working with the Interact Club at Santa Teresa High School. And thank you, Dave, for bringing your truck on the 16th. Please bring items. We're hoping to have this be a recurring event with 2 other clubs and maybe more around the Bay Area to get a precious resource where it needs to go to help the environment and to help our future.
Thank you, Deanna. Sarah Janigan, come on up. You know, Deanna's one of those people, if you have something that needs to get done, call her. She's the busiest person in showbiz, but she'll always say yes. Thanks, Deanna, for everything you do. Sarah's going to talk about the gala a little bit for, it says 1 or 2 minutes on my agenda, Sarah, so enjoy.
I have a quick gala update. It's happening very soon in this room. We are very excited. We'll be bringing the Razzmatazz Jazz Club to you here in the Summit Center. We have lined up some great entertainment. There'll be some of the favorites that have always been a big part of the gala. Bert will be pouring wine and also serving the bar, so that's really wonderful and very generous of him. We have a lot of our downtown businesses and cultural venues who are back in the auction lineup, and we have been very pleased in the response of some of these organizations. And so there will be a lot of auction items that include tickets to Opera San Jose, the Symphony, City Lights Theater, the Hammer Theater, dinners at Scott's and Mescal's. So a lot of the downtown businesses are coming back, and we are happy to support them and have them be a part of this event. You might want to start planning now. We have a lot of activities and offerings that include groups. So we've got a barbecue dinner in the vineyard at the Greer home in the Almaden Valley. We've got pizza and bocce at Mark and Jeannie Lazarini's. We've got the art brunch at the Stones home. We've got the Mixin' with Sal and Amy at their home, and I'm almost done. And there's a fabulous progressive dinner being planned by Culinary and Hospitality. So all these things are in groups of 10 or more, so start planning your groups and bid high. Purchase your tickets through the office, and if any of your committees have auction items that you still need to get to me, please contact me. We need to know what they are. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the gala.
Thanks to Sarah and the auction committee for, the gala committee for doing great work. Leslie and I and Sal and Fernando and Karen went to a speech by Jennifer Jones that someone referred to earlier. My mind is a jumble, I'm sorry. But at the Black Hawk Museum, and Jennifer Jones was really a fine speaker. I hope you all get a chance to hear her, whether live or virtual, during her year as the president of Rotary International. A reminder, the district conference is April 22nd to 24th at the Black Hawk Car Museum. If you haven't been there, if you like cars, this place is incredible. They must have $20 million worth of cars or something like that. I'm not interested in cars, so it didn't turn me on much, but Sal enjoyed the cars. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce one of our own, today's speaker, Larry Stone.
I can never get over it. Okay. COVID has inserted a level of uncertainty in the global economy that has made normal economic analysis extremely difficult. COVID has been, as we know, a monumental health and humanitarian crisis of global significance. The economic recovery, as we know, is highly globalized. COVID painfully impacted the most vulnerable American households, creating serious economic dislocation. Silicon Valley has the highest level of income and wealth inequality in the United States, which increased dramatically during COVID. COVID disruption impacted the way we engage with others in social activities, how we interact with others in the workplace, how we travel, how we shop, even how we buy groceries. Business investment, retail sales, home construction, exports, consumer and government spending all reached record lows in 2020. The federal government, and to a lesser extent the state, reacted quite quickly to the crisis by providing a huge economic stimulus to boost the economy. $2.5 trillion in direct payments and $1 trillion in tax relief. Well, in my opinion, the federal stimulus was excessive and completely undisciplined. The purpose of a stimulus is to put money in the hands of people, expecting the people will spend the money, boosting the economy. Well, during COVID, people could not spend the money they received because everything was shut down. So many people saved their stimulus. The result is a significant increase in savings, not spending, which is contrary to the purpose of a stimulus to begin with. During COVID, Americans were stockpiling savings, which reached a 30-year high. Americans recently, in the last year, I guess, have been spending at record levels. Consumer spending is the primary driver of the U.S. economy, accounting for about 70% of economic activity. Consumer prices jumped 7.5% in January compared to a year earlier, the fastest pace in 40 years. Robust consumer spending combined with widespread product and worker shortage has created the highest inflation that we've seen since 1980. Supply chains disruptions, rapid consumer demand and spending, and historic housing costs fueled a burst in inflation. The U.S. economy has run headfirst into the perfect storm of high demand and low supply. Inflation is eroding the strong gains in wages and salaries which flowed to Americans in the last half of 2021. Everything from food and fuel to rent and automobiles, both new and old, will all cost more than they did a year ago. Inflation is the enemy of the middle class. The inflation rate exceeded the mortgage rate for the first time since 1980. There are two types of inflation. First, the cost of materials and products. The second is more intractable, labor inflation. With inflation at the highest point in 3 decades, the Fed announced for 3 interest rate hikes this year, beginning this month. The supply chain disruption is the most serious problem facing American economy right now. Our ports are hopelessly clogged. It takes 9 days for a ship anchored in Long Beach or LA harbors to unload, an increase from just 2 days in 2019. The shortage of silicon chips required for nearly every product, including automobiles, is most serious. It may take 2 years for that problem to be resolved. The supply chain bottlenecks and higher wages are causing companies to pass their higher costs on to consumers. Grant Thornton, chief economist Diane Schwank, said, quote, "High prices are the ultimate corrector of high prices. In other words, when stuff costs too much, consumers and businesses pull back, which could have economic consequences in the long run. All this economic chaos and uncertainty has resulted in a labor shortage, particularly a shortage of service workers. The U.S. services sector employs a majority of Americans. But is there really a labor shortage? Is it a job problem or a worker problem? Some economists believe that it's not a labor shortage, just companies not willing to pay wages sufficiently to induce workers to work for them. The number of job openings have topped 10 million for 5 consecutive months. There are 1.7 job openings for every unemployed worker. At the same time, there are 6.7 million Americans unemployed, which reflects upon the historic level of turmoil in the job market that exists today. Despite the fact that the U.S. economy is recovering rapidly and 12 million jobs lost to COVID have been recovered, there are still 5 million fewer workers today than there were in February of 2020. Silicon Valley has gained back almost all of the jobs that we lost from the pandemic. California's job count stands at 96% of pre-pandemic levels. The Bay Area job growth has continued to surge, outpacing U.S. gains, causing Silicon Valley's unemployment rate to fall dramatically from 6.6% to 2.9% today. We have recovered, declared Russ Hancock, the CEO of joint venture Silicon Valley. Tech jobs are now 5% above pre-COVID levels. Americans, however, are quitting jobs at record levels. In the month of December alone, 4.3 million U.S. workers quit their jobs, the highest on record. It's referred to as the Great Resignation. You know, that song, "You Can Take This Job and Shove It," comes to mind. Actually, it's really a great reshuffle. COVID also gave many people time to rethink their lives and their careers, and many have decided to ditch jobs in industries like restaurants and hospitality for higher pay and benefits in transportation and warehousing, for example, providing a more consistent work schedule. Workers have discovered now that they can leverage the chaotic labor market to their advantage, a rare opportunity for better pay and working conditions. And finally, retirements exploded during COVID. The long-term future of the job market is somewhat clouded, however, as more baby boomers are leaving the job market than millennials, those born after 1980, or Gen Zers that born after 1996 are entering the labor force. In the long term, this could have serious consequences. You know, baby boomers grew up in households of 3 to 4 children. Demographers today tell us that millennials are having 1.2 children. Consequently, there is insufficient Gen Zers, the children of millennials, to maintain a stable workforce in the future. Increased immigration and robots are the only answer to meet our future workforce demands. Now, Elon Musk says we're going to have a robot labor shortage. Americans, however, have been poisoned by the anti-immigration sentiments and the political rhetoric that comes with it. Long-term, the Bay Area economic challenges remain the same: housing, transportation, and economic competitiveness. Economists like Chris Thornburg of Beacon Economics said over a year ago that the COVID recession was technically over because it didn't have any of the long-term characteristics of the 2008 Great Recession. Thornburg recently said there's been no collapse of wealth, just huge inequity in wealth distribution. The Great Recession lasted about 8 years. COVID recession technically lasted only 18 months. Thornburg said that the COVID recession was the deepest, but the shortest in economic history. CBS News analyst Jill Schlesinger wrote, quote, "Accelerated vaccine distribution, trillions of dollars of federal spending, pent-up demand, and low interest rates equals a roaring U.S. economy. Call it the Roaring 20s just one generation later." California is a very diverse economy, we know that. But that diversity is our strength because it creates a broader economic base. Silicon Valley is structured to resist long-term declines in economic activity. Big tech has a special kind of resilience because innovation is the driving force behind our success. Economic uncertainty and COVID didn't stop venture capital investments, however. Venture capital, led by record numbers of mega deals in the Bay Area, hit a record high, reaching $80 billion last year and $29 billion in the third quarter alone. Angel investments were also up 21% year over year. There are significant differences between the 2008 Great Recession and the COVID recession. The 2008 Great Recession was caused by subprime mortgage credit fraud and major financial institutions taking undue risk. Worker layoffs back then were more permanent. The U.S. economy didn't fully recover from the Great Recession until around 2015. The huge spike in unemployment, in which 22 million jobs were lost virtually overnight, the fastest decline in economic history, was directly related to a sudden health pandemic outside the normal financial system. Workers were laid off from profitable, sustainable businesses that were ordered to close. So what are some of the economic implications of this pandemic on our real estate markets? Well, the most obvious, travel, hospitality, and leisure sectors. They were hit first and hit hardest. The hotel and lodging sectors are most vulnerable due to a decrease in tourism and business travel. In addition to government-imposed limits on public gatherings, conventions, conferences, trade fairs, and sporting events. Hotels that depend primarily on business travelers, the largest source of hotel revenue, suffered the most. During COVID, business travel was down 85%. Investment interest in hotels, however, is booming. In Santa Clara County, hotel investments is up 174%. A 59-room iconic hotel in Monterey County recently sold for $2.5 million a room. The hotel industry, however, is not expected to fully recover from 2019 levels until around 2024. The airlines and hospitality industries are dependent upon each other. The airline and aerospace industries have been in a severe state of disarray. Leisure travel was beginning to increase, and business travel was expected to pick up this year as the public was gaining more confidence in the health and safety of airline travel. Then came the Omicron variant. As businesses, however, become comfortable with Zoom and webinars, this could have a more permanent impact on business travel and ultimately on lodging. The next sector is retail. The one sector that is increasingly weaker is retail. The downward trend of retail accelerated rapidly during COVID. Fear of social contacting, plummeting consumer confidence exacerbated the serious challenges already facing the retail sector, primarily in-store retailers. Restaurants, food and beverage outlets, major malls suffered from compulsory or self-imposed access restrictions. Bloomberg reported that 11,000 restaurants, more than 10% of all the restaurants in the country, closed permanently last year. According to CBRE, it will be at least a year or two before the restaurant business comes back from the free fall, as the public begins to feel more comfortable. The increasing prevalence of online shopping versus traditional brick and mortar stores all point in the same direction. Online sales are growing exponentially faster than in-store sales, and that trend continues to accelerate. The retail bubble is burst, and the problem is not cyclical. I believe it is a forever trend. Retail malls are leading the retail mess. It's referred to as the Unmalling of America. One major researcher projects that 30% of the nation's 1,100 malls will close in the next 4 years. He stated, and listen to this, malls as a property type are dead. Malls are only worth the dirt they sit on. Their structures have no value. Wow. Think about that. The France-based principal owner of Valley Fair and Oak Ridge Malls, the largest owner of malls in the world, announced recently it will divest the company of all malls in the U.S. over the next 3 years. Forbes reported that nearly 16,000 retail locations closed permanently last year, compared to 7,000 in 2019. And 60% of those were mall-based. CBL Properties, one of the nation's largest mall owners with 90 malls, filed for bankruptcy in 2020. The U.S. is simply overstored. The decline of retail, particularly shopping malls, is having a direct impact upon local sales and property tax revenue, critical for funding schools and local government. Traditional shopping centers, particularly malls, are being repurposed to consumer centers with a mixture of uses including fitness, health and wellness, co-working operations, or are being converted to things like offices, affordable housing, distribution centers for e-commerce, classrooms, churches, museums, and even transitional space for the homeless. San Diego's Horton Plaza, a 900,000 square foot open air 5-level retail mall encompassing 6.5 blocks in downtown San Diego, is currently being redeveloped as a mixed-use tech and life science hub. Local elected leaders must give up their love affair with retail shopping centers for the sales tax revenue, as in-store retail is a declining enterprise. With the inevitability of autonomous cars, vast surface parking lots present an opportunity for housing development. Millennials were the driving force behind e-commerce. Millennials grew up in a one-click world where speed and convenience is expected and indeed demanded. The decline of the middle class is also having a profound effect on retailers. Deep discount retailers like dollar stores are doing extraordinarily well. One retail leader described it as the 3 C's: closures, consolidations, and contractions. Excess Space Solutions Company projects that retailers are expected to downsize their storefront space by 40 to 50% over the next 10 years. Nevertheless, e-commerce sales still represent only 18% of total retail sales. While 4 in every 5 U.S. consumers regularly shop online, and 40% of those online shoppers buy something on Amazon once a month. In my household, it's once a week, right, Colonel? So are there any winners? Yes, there are. Walmart, Target, Amazon, of course. Amazon's market cap reached $1.5 trillion yesterday, which is greater than the market cap of the other 15 retailers combined. And those other retailers are Walmart, Costco, Target, Nordstrom's, Best Buy, and 10 others. Think about that. Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods sent shockwaves through the grocery industry. One industry expert described it as Amazon declaring war on every supermarket and corner store in America. Many believe that Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook are abusive monopolies and that our markets are no longer competitive. Google has a 92% market share and accounts for 22% of the S&P 500 all by itself. Apple owns 4 of the 5 biggest apps, 79% of the smartphone profits, and became the first $3 trillion company. Facebook has 2 billion subscribers, nearly as many as Christianity has followers. At the same time, we are seeing a transformational turn in the retail industry. It's called clicks to bricks. Established e-commerce retail brands have been opening brick and mortar retail locations, benefiting from their e-commerce brand and success, building a retail presence, but most importantly, improving their distribution footprint. Well, the housing market was initially blindsided by COVID, but has come booming back. Last year, median home prices increased 23.7% year over year in Santa Clara County to over 1.5 million. Low mortgage rates, high savings rates, fewer homes for sale, and pent-up demand for more living space during COVID have driven quick sales and high home prices to record levels, creating fierce bidding wars, sometimes 30% or more above the asking price. And the majority of homeowners are waiving contingencies with as-is and all-cash offers prevailing. Home sales in San Jose declined 32% last year. And the median home price on the market, the median time a home on the market has declined from 23 days in 2019 to just 8 days in the San Jose metropolitan area. The high-end single-family market is hot in Silicon Valley. Wealthy tech professionals, driven by record stock prices and low interest rates, are snapping up expensive homes. In Silicon Valley, luxury home sales jumped 46%, and the prices of condominiums are up 36%. Apartment rents have also come roaring back, up 12.8% for both new leases and renewals. Now it's above pre-COVID levels. You know, the jury is out on the long-term impact of teleworking on the office market. Most experts believe that they will ultimately settle on some kind of hybrid approach. Well, what impact has COVID had on commercial real estate? This economic disruption triggered a new cycle of loan defaults. Trepp Analytics reported that commercial mortgage default rates and delinquencies have reached an all-time high in 2020, with lodging and retail, of course, heading the list. Defaults eventually lead to a surge in distressed property sales. COVID has affected the office market in different ways. Initially, office leasing was virtually shut down as more employees worked from home. But investment interest in office buildings did not. It just got hotter. Havison Young reports that there are 115 office properties under construction or in the planning pipeline in Silicon Valley, totaling 51.7 million square feet of space. Boston Properties, you may have read just recently, resumed work on their 1.1 million square foot Class A office building, which the company shut down during COVID. There are 16 million square feet, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, 16 million square feet of high-rise office space under construction or in the pipeline in downtown San Jose area. The tech sector seems to be the major player here. Colliers International reports that homegrown tech giants like Apple, Applied Materials, and NetApp have deepened their footprint in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley office rents have reached an all-time high, according to Colliers. LinkedIn, Tesla, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook completed major leases and property acquisitions in the fourth quarter of last year. CBRE recently declared that Silicon Valley, and listen to this, declared that Silicon Valley as the #1 future office development market in the United States. Our high-tech ecosystem seems to be the reason for that. The Mercury News reported that, quote, investors are gobbling up existing Bay Area office buildings, a reflection of the long-term strength of the tech market. The Silicon Valley industrial and warehouse markets are very strong. Locally, industrial and warehouse vacancies are less than 2%. Green Street Real Estate, a firm I respect, expects dramatic growth in industrial property values this year. So who are some of the winners of the pandemic? Well, the healthcare industry, of course. Healthcare, clinics, labs, medical device manufacturers, entertainment like Netflix, tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, teleconferencing like Zoom, and of course, Amazon again. Online retailers are benefiting, accelerating the impact of e-commerce on brick and mortar retailers. The increase in online shopping has created a demand for more logistic facilities. Logistics, data centers, and life sciences sector are on fire, and it's not a one-off. I believe it's a serious trend.
Disruption of global supply chains has ironically helped warehousing and logistics. As consumers shift from in-store purchasing to online, and consumers demand faster shipment, even same-day delivery, that e-commerce distribution centers must be located closer to city centers. And then there's reverse logistics. That's the need to facilitate the increase in the number of returns. This will continue to fuel the demand for the logistics sector. Industrial real estate, particularly warehouse, the last mile of distribution, will be one of the most desired asset classes this year. So COVID took its toll on tax revenues as well. Government spending is an important component of a healthy economy. There is a connection between economic growth and tax revenue. As tax revenues decline, so does governmental spending. McKinsey and Company analyzed the impact of job growth and concluded that 46% of all jobs could be replaced by the current methods of automation by 2030. A Stanford University computer science professor said at the 2019 joint venture Silicon Valley that 50% of all jobs could be automated by AI. For example, there are 3.5 million truck drivers and 700,000 bus drivers in the US today who will likely be displaced by autonomous trucks and buses. Cruise, a subsidiary of General Motors, and Waymo are operating robot cars without backup drivers on the streets of San Francisco today. Driverless technology has moved out of the R&D phase. By 2023, you will be able to text up an autonomous taxi cab. You can do that today in Chandler, Arizona. And finally, I'd like to comment on the concern over the California exodus. While it is a concern, it is not a crisis. In 2020, 650,000 people left California for other states, and 480,000 people came to California from other states, a net loss of 170,000 people. So where do these Californians go? Well, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon. But where do these new Californians come from? Well, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and New York. In the 10 years ending in 2019, California's exit rate was 1.6%, the lowest of any state in the nation. In Silicon Valley, only 4 major companies have left California, but by and large, their workforce didn't follow. Tesla is still manufacturing automobiles in Fremont, and Tesla recently leased a 325,000 square foot building in North San Jose. Now, we never want to lose population, particularly because recently California lost a congressional seat. But a crisis? No. A concerning trend? Probably. Apple just purchased 5 buildings in Cupertino. So I think the demise of Silicon Valley is grossly exaggerated. Apple is worth $3 trillion. Google is worth $2 trillion. Facebook is worth $1 trillion. 80% of all tech R&D occurs right here in Silicon Valley. That's not going to change anytime soon. Well, those are my observations today, but in this economy, it could change tomorrow. If we have time, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Oh, come on, it's impossible. Carl. Rich after Carl. Right on there, Carl.
Hey, Larry, that's terrific, really terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank
hey,
you.
You didn't mention homeless. You know, it still drives me crazy that the image of California, you know, some of our major cities, including San Jose, is the homeless. Have you seen any impact? Do you see any numbers that say that there has been an impact?
I've read about some. In fact, just recently, what the improvement has been. In other words, the number of homeless people or housing for people, I think, have gone down. But I don't know. I mean, it is certainly a moving target as the camps are moving targets. But it is a serious problem. I mean, I own affordable housing myself, but that's different than homeless. And we got to get our hands around it. In fact, let me say this, that if we don't solve, meaning Silicon Valley, the housing crisis, we can go the way of Detroit. You know, back in the 70s, 50s and 60s, and even into the 70s, Detroit was the envy of the world. Everybody wanted the automobile industry. Well, we're sitting right now in the envy of the world, called Silicon Valley. Detroit's population has gone from 2 million to about 800,000. And they're clawing their way out of bankruptcy. If we don't solve our housing problem, we can do the same thing. And things happen much faster in Silicon Valley than they happen in Detroit.
Rich.
Yeah, Larry, I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but one of my takeaways is companies, I'll use Starbucks as an example, you know, they're closing early and limiting their services because they're not willing to pay people enough, right? So what's their end game for a company like that? That could be any of these brick and mortar retailers that are closing early or closing down completely.
This will be the final question. Larry, it's all yours.
I don't know. I mean, some companies have a lot of social responsibilities and others have none, but they do operate for profit. We got to find a way to make sure that they're responsive enough and still maintain the profits for their shareholders. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
Oh, photo op? Yeah. No, that.
2 more minutes before the chit chat. We are making a donation on Larry's behalf. Larry, thank you. And it's not hard to figure out where that donation is going to go today. It's going to go to Ukraine. We will figure out appropriate charities with the help of Clarence and Liz Monley and others in the club. On Zoom today, Heather Lerner and Jeff Poley both wanted to ring the bell 5 times, so that's another $1,000. And I was really proud of all of you today. Thank you. But a reminder, this problem in Ukraine is not going away anytime soon. So let's all be vigilant and support these people in their fight for freedom. With that, next week, our program is, I should know this, Kristen Brandt speaking on theater in the age of COVID. And all of you, thank you for everything you do. I'll see you next week.